All right, welcome in Cinco de Mayo. My mom was calling it Cinco de Drinko. All right, lady, calm down. It's Tuesday. I I think I misspoke on the last episode. Said these were going to be the Monday episodes. Tuesday. I want to make sure those series get totally done so we can talk the whole week. I'm going to start with a rant. Some of you guys know, big Christopher Nolan movie fan. Today, the Odyssey trailer came out. Looks fantastic. Just looks great. We'll see how it is. All his great movies, the trailers come out and people are like, ooh, I don't know. The trailers don't tell you what the movie's going to be. He wants it that way. It's going to be fine. But my rant is I saw a large gathering of people online talking about how either the famous cast takes them out of the time period or the use of the word dad takes them out of the time period. People, there's a 50-foot cyclops in the movie. There's a 50-foot monster with one eye. Shut up. Okay? That's my rant. If you find a way to complain about one of the greatest filmmakers of all time adapting a story and doing it his way, try having a real problem in your life. That's all I got. Let's talk some baseball. If you're watching on YouTube and you're like, hey, where are those cool graphics from Friday's episode? I'm going to try to do them as much as I can for the Tuesday episodes. It's honestly going to depend on how busy my weekend is. This weekend I was slammed. Just a very busy weekend. Not going to happen. You're stuck with this face. This is the new Tuesday format. I know I kind of talked about it. This is going to be a little less series recap. We'll go over every series and make sure we hit on what happened in totality. But we're going to be diving a little bit more into like tweaks hitters and pitchers are making, why they're improving, what they can do to improve, stuff like that. You'll get the gist of it. We're going to go team by team, and that'll allow us to like just if there's nothing interesting for a team over the last week, we'll talk about how they did in their series, and we'll move on. If there is interesting stuff, we'll hit on it. And I'm thinking about moving the teams around because the way I have it formatted right now, it's based on who they played their first series against. So it would be last week, the week that started with April 27th, it would be those two teams back to back. Like I start with the Angels and the White Sox, and they played each other in the first series of the week. So if that gets a little too repetitive, or maybe that's a good thing that it kind of stays centered with the first series, but we'll adjust. Let me know in the comments if you prefer one way or the other. We'll see. But yeah, let's get it kicked off. The Angels went 1-5 over the last week. This team is ice cold. We went to a game on Sunday, little birthday celebration, fun stuff. And yeah, they lost. They look bad. We went to the Mark Vientos game. He hit a couple homers. He's been pretty hot, but we'll talk about him later. The Angels got swept by the White Sox, who they're next, but you know, it's not as bad as being swept by the White Sox of previous years. And then they lost 2 of 3 to the ice-cold Mets. Like I said, absolute nosedive. It stinks. I'd love to watch a fun Angels team. They're my home team. Get to go to their games all the time. They're my family's team. I'd love for them to be fun. But the nosedive is 2-12 of their last 14. Not great. The fun part. There's fun parts. Maybe there's one. Because Soriano finally got touched. And the White Sox seemed to own him. Because they faced him again yesterday and they hit him. But that'll be in next week's recap. The fun part for the Angels fans is that Elite Trout is back. And he's so fun to watch. I'm sure if you're tapped in, you've seen this. If you're not, Trout adjusted his swing to where now when he gets set, his back foot picks up, which is kind of unorthodox, but it keeps you in an athletic position and keeps you bouncy, kind of. But he picks up his back foot and moves it backwards. There was actually a point in one of these series where he stopped doing it for 2 at-bats, and then he went back to it, and he hit a home run once he went back to it. So I don't see him leaving that. So hopefully that's the key, and he continues to rake because it's so fun to watch. He's been so good this year. But other than that, not a great time in Anaheim. The next team, touched on them, the White Sox. They went 5-1. They swept the Angels like I talked about, which, okay, fine. But then they won 2 or 3 against the Padres, who are one of the better teams in baseball so far. The White Sox are hot. One of the things I wanted to talk about is Munetaka Murakami. There was a large group of people, and I was very skeptical, but there was a large group of people that just didn't think he would hit coming over from Japan. There were a lot of scary numbers on his swings on fastballs. I think it was 94 miles an hour and above, which is kind of all you're seeing in the MLB. And if you remember Joey Gallo when he was hot, it's very much that style of play. He's going to strike out a ton. When he makes contact, he's going to hit home runs. He has 14 home runs, and I believe he just hit his first double yesterday or 2 days ago. He is optimized to hit the ball very hard in the air when he touches it. Now, what could have been the problem is if he was swinging out of the zone, he just would never get pitches to hit. The reason he's been so good is because he's getting the ball in the zone. Because when he swings out of the zone, he misses. Some guys are very good at swinging out of the zone and fouling stuff off. Look at a Luis Ariz, right? But he is taking pitches out of the zone. He's getting balls in the zone. He's whiffing. He's swinging and missing a decent amount. But once he makes contact, it's hard. It's in the air. He's going to be one of those guys that he'll go on stretches of awesome stuff, just 5 home runs in a week. He'll go on stretches where he will strike out 5 out of every 6 at-bats for 2 to 3 weeks. He's going to be very polarizing. You're going to love him. You're going to hate him. It's going to be fun to watch, though. Because this is the most extreme version of this profile since Joey Gallo, and he might even be more than Joey Gallo. So I'm so curious to see how his career pans out, because people have this misconception of Joey Gallo because they see the tail end where he just lost it. He just didn't have it anymore. Joey Gallo had some good years, man. So I'm very intrigued to see what Murakami does. The other guy in the White Sox I wanted to dive into was Davis Martin, because I saw he had a start, and it was great. And then they showed his season stats, and it looked great. He doesn't have the craziest stuff. His four-seamer sits 94, right at let's call that the Murakami line, if you will. But he limits his walks, and his non-fastballs grade out very well. All the off-speed pitches grade out very well. He throws 5 pitches that aren't his four-seam, so he's got 6 in the arsenal. And the 5 non-four-seam pitches, he throws all at a 12 to 17% usage. So it is kitchen sink. You got to guess at what's coming, because he throws 6 pitches at above 12% usage rate. His arm angle has also dropped every year for 3 years. That's another thing we saw with Emerson Hancock. I don't know if I touched on that previously. His arm angle dropped a ton this year, and he's been elite. So that might be something with pitchers that we'll monitor about arm angles dropping and improvements. But yeah, Davis Martin increased the usage of all his non-four-seam pitches, and he's been awesome. Moving on to the Guardians, they went 3-3. This is back when we were just doing series. The 2-2 split is just the lame alert. The 3-3 is going to be the lame alert. No one wants to see 3-3. I want to see movement. I want you to be diving, or I want you to be rising. If you're staying 3-3, what am I going to talk about? The first series, they lost 2-3 to the Rays, and the second one, they won 2-3 to the A's. Riveting stuff. No. This is exciting because Travis Bazzana debuted. The first couple games there've been some things. He hasn't hit yet. It's fine. He made a bad error. Gavin Williams picked him up, so it was fine. But it just hasn't looked great so far. He's a rookie. It's been 1 week. He'll be fine. But for Guardians fans, they're praying that he's fine because he went 1-1 in the 2014 draft. These are some notable names taken after him. Chase Burns, who's electric for the Reds. Nick Kurtz, who won the AL Rookie of the Year and just hits all the homers. Jack Caglione, who just had a bobblehead night and hit a home run during his bobblehead night. JJ Weatherholt, who has been awesome and is an NL Rookie of the Year favorite. I'd have to look at the odds. I'm assuming he is the favorite. Also homered in his first at-bat against Paul Skeens. Speaking of Paul Skeens, Connor Griffin got drafted after him. Cam Smith of the Astros got drafted after him. Carson Bench, who has hit his stride for the Mets, got drafted after him. And postseason hero Trey Savage got drafted after him. Guardians fans are begging Travis Bazzana to be good. He has to be, or else that is a bad pick. And at the time, it didn't seem like it, so you can't say too much badly about the pick itself, but it's just unfortunate, man. But let's give him a shot. We'll see how he does. The team they played in the first series was the Rays. They went 5-1 this week. Awesome week for the Rays. They caught 2 or 3 against the Guardians, and then they swept the Giants. I mean, playing the Giants feels like the free space in bingo right now. Caminero had a rough series against Cleveland. Thankfully, he's okay, but he had a foul ball off his face, a weird swing that bounced into the dirt, kicked up, and hit him in the face. He got kicked in the face on a tag play when he was playing third. Someone dove and their body slid in a weird way to where he got hit in the face or kicked in the face. And then it was a very cold day, and he hit one off the end of his bat, and his hand hurt so bad he had to leave the game. Just a rough series for the kid, but thankfully he's okay. You're going to homer against the Giants, so he's good. Yeah, Rays, great week for them. They might be better than the Red Sox. I'll say that. I don't see the Rays making too much noise in the East, but good week. The Orioles, I don't know. The Orioles just might never be a good team. They went 2-5. They won 2 or 3 against the Astros. Started off the week great, and then 4 games against the Yankees. Swept. In a bad way, too. It was rough. The fun stuff against the Astros, Adley and Jeremiah Jackson both hit grand slams in the same game. That was pretty fun. It's the first time the Orioles have done that since 2015. And on that positive note, Adley Rutschman, he doesn't look elite like you would want him to be for the draft pedigree and what he showed in his first couple years. But he's back to being at least a net positive. I'd say even a skosh better than that, like good, not great. And that's huge. He was so bad last year. It's huge to get him back to being a net positive. The Astros split the lame stuff like we talked about. They lost 2 or 3 to the Orioles, and then they won 2 or 3 to the Red Sox. Yeah, that's kind of all I have on the Astros. They're not, other than Jordan, they're not doing it for me this year. They're not. The Orioles aren't. The Red Sox aren't. So the whole Astros week was just a bunch of teams. Ugh, I don't really want to watch right now. It's rough. Moving on to the Reds. Yeah, let's get out of there. The Reds went 2-4, which is a bummer for them because they've been doing so well. They won 2 or 3 to the Rockies, nice, but then they get swept by the Pirates, and that's huge because that division is a gauntlet right now, and they need to win as many head-to-head games as they can. The guy I wanted to dive into here for the Reds, even though it wasn't a great week, it looks like Ellie took the next step. Like the last couple years, it feels like a lot of people have been trying to jump the gun and predict, hey, this is the year Ellie's going to be in the MVP conversation. This might be the year. I think I've talked about it previously, but hitting righty in previous years, he's been atrocious. Obviously a switch hitter, hitting from the right side of the plate, which you do less, to be fair, but he was just bad. And he looks light years better. He's still going to whiff. He's still going to strike out a lot, but he's made enough improvement, and every time he hits the ball, he's hitting it hard. And then his defense is rating out very well. He's such a long, fast, freaky athlete. His defense should be great. So seeing that, hopefully that sticks. And, I mean, if he plays the way he's been playing, MVP candidate, year in, year out. And that's the way it should be. He has all the potential in the world. The Rockies that we talked about, 1-5 on the week. Tough week for the Rockies. Like I said, lost 2 or 3 to the Reds, but then they caught the Braves. And the note I have here, that's exactly how you think Rockies-Braves would go right now. Braves are the best team in baseball. And the Rockies are improved, but they're still the Rockies. So that's how that went. The bright side of it is Hunter Goodman. He's making last year look like it's not a fluke. You worry about the high homer seasons in Colorado because, elevation, you get lucky for a few, you get hot for a stretch. But he's proving it's not. The underlying data doesn't look great. A lot of bad swing decisions and whiff. But, again, it's the conversation I've been having with Ellie, with Murakami. Teams are optimizing people with bad swing decisions and getting them to hit the ball with the right angles and the right speeds when they hit the ball. So teams are getting so good at this, of just optimizing the hitter that doesn't see the ball too well and making them hit homers when they do. So hopefully that keeps going. The Rockies need something going for them. The Pirates went 3-4. They got swept in 4 games by the Cardinals. The Cardinals look good, man. I don't know. And then they swept the Reds. This is fun. Even though it's 3-4 and it's kind of middle of the road, if you're going to go middle of the road, get swept and then sweep someone. That's fun. The note I had is a lot of brooms out in Pittsburgh because back-to-back sweeps. Connor Griffin's starting to do damage. He has 2 homers now. Both happened in the last week or so. And they're both backside. They're both opposite field. I think he's going to be a slow burn. He's only 19 years old. So I don't think this it clicks now. I think it's going to be okay numbers. The defense isn't going to be great. He's going to impact with his speed. He's very fast. He will impact on the bases when he gets on. But I think this is going to be like a don't see him in the offseason, and then he comes back and you go, whoa, that's an improvement. And then his 20-year-old season, he's better. And then maybe the defense ticks up and the swing decisions tick up a little bit. And then when he comes back for 21, that's when I think we see, hey, this guy is right there with Bobby Witt of like 5-tool shortstops. So I think it's going to be a slow burn with Connor Griffin, but the finished product is going to be so exciting. So he'll be worth the wait. The Cardinals, 6-1 on the week. 4-game sweep of the Pirates. And they beat the Dodgers 2 out of 3 games. I said the Cardinals were going to be fun this year. I don't think they're going to be this fun the whole year, but this is awesome. And a fun fact about the Cardinals, they own Paul Skeens. No one else can say this. The Cardinals own Paul Skeens has not won a game against the Cardinals. And you go, okay, maybe that's, the guys who have seen him. Maybe J.J. Weatherholt won't do that. First at bat against Paul Skeens, J.J. Weatherholt, bomb. Crazy. I don't know. Like I said, I don't think this sustains because the Cardinals are, they look elite. But they're going to be a really fun team and enjoy the ride because they're hot right now. The Phillies, Don Mattingly might have the Phillies back. They went 6-1 on the week, same as the Cardinals. They free space and bingo. Hold on, they did sweep the Giants, and then they won 3 of 4 versus the Marlins. The note I put is don't let this team get hot. Zach Wheeler should be back soon. Having a manager change up the vibes could be a good thing. Looking like it's a good thing because they had a doubleheader the next day. I believe it was the next day or 2 days after. Double walk-offs. I mean, you get a manager change and then you go double walk-off in a doubleheader. That's some momentum stuff right there. In the Giants series, game 1 was Chris Sanchez versus Logan Webb. I just made a note that that's awesome. Very fun game to watch. And then sometimes you forget. Schwarber bombs, probably the coolest thing in baseball. Just a big man getting into one to lead off a game. It's great. The next team is the free space and bingo. The Giants went 0-6 on the week. They got swept by the Phillies. They got swept by the Rays. The only note I have here is, if you don't know, Giants rookie manager, Tony Vitello, he kind of had a dramatic hiring process. He got hired straight from the University of Tennessee's baseball team. And it was kind of this weird, he didn't want to disrespect Tennessee, and so he was saying some weird stuff. And my question is he wishing this is all a bad dream and he's still the head coach at Tennessee right now? Because the Giants are unraveling. And if for some reason they were to scapegoat him this early in his contract and he gets fired, I don't think Tennessee is just going to take him back. And I think he loved it there. So that's my question. Does he just go, I wish that this never happened? I don't know, man. I knew I didn't like the Giants before the year. I didn't think it'd be this bad. But maybe they turn it around and look like an okay team. I just don't know where you go from here. Like, there's so much new in the coaching staff. And Posey's built this team around veterans they've traded for endeavors. And I don't know. It's not looking good in San Francisco. The next team is the Blue Jays. 4-3. Okay, fine. They won 2 of 3 versus the Red Sox. Fine. And then they split 2 of 2 versus the Twins. That's a team, Blue Jays got to start winning ball games because the Yankees look great. Trey Savage is back. That's awesome. He had a great first outing. The thing I'm curious about, because his postseason was unreal, and I don't want to be the guy that not hates on, but just tempers expectations on an awesome thing. Trey Savage is not going to be who he was in the postseason over the course of his career. Spoiler alert. But even like the course of this year, I'm curious how good he will be, though, because if you don't know, in baseball, something new is the traject arc machine. It's a pitching machine that can replicate a pitcher pretty much everything. There's a video screen that shows the pitcher's windup, and then it replicates the release height, the spin on the ball, the characteristics of the pitch, all that type of stuff. There are certain pitchers with unique enough arm angles, either high or low, that the machine can't recreate it. Trey Savage is one of those players. He has the highest release point in all of baseball. So maybe that's a giant advantage, and he does look great for over the whole course of a season. I think that is a factor. Maybe there's a tweak in the machines, or they use different machines, or some other explanation for teams figuring out how to prepare for him. But I don't think he'll be elite, because if he does the postseason thing and what he did in his first outing, he's in the Cy Young conversation. I don't think he's that kind of pitcher, but him being back is great for the Blue Jays. He's going to be a very solid 3, elite 4, in my opinion. He could even be like a passable to good 2 in the rotation. So it's great. It's great for the Blue Jays. I don't want to hate. He's going to be great, but I just don't think he's that great. Next team is dead. It's the Red Sox. There's some teams you forget. You get all excited for the season, and you forget that some teams just die by May. It's sad. But this team's dead. Like I talked about on Friday about them firing everyone and all that stuff. The team's dead. They're turning on each other. Wilson Contreras had comments about like, we have some young guys who maybe haven't struggled before, and then Marcelo Meyer comes out and says, okay, blame it on the young guys. So there's in-house fighting. Doesn't seem like this is going to turn around. I'd love it to. I've said it a million times. I love so many players on the Red Sox. I want to watch them be fun. I don't think it's going to happen. They lost 2 of 3 to the Blue Jays and the Astros. The one guy what was that? The one guy I dove into was Brian Bayo because he's been awful, and he's been good in previous years. He's got one of the worst. He's been one of the worst starting pitchers in baseball. What I saw when I was comparing the years, and maybe a reason for why he's been so bad this year, is his sweeper and his four-seam fastball usages have shot down. And he's throwing his sinker almost half the time. I believe it's 44%. That's like the tweak from last year to this year was so drastic. His sweeper and his fastball shot down like in the 20s of percentages. So that drastic of a change and how bad he's been so far this year, they have to look at that and tweak it back to a certain degree. And at that point, I have to assume he gets somewhat better, because to change your usages and pitches that much and look that bad, that's a franchise like them should be able to see that and fix it somewhat, at least. Hopefully. What a bummer, man. The Detroit Tigers went 3-3 this week, but it's not about the games. They had one brutal game where Mize left with a groin injury, and then Javi got carted off on a weird slide. But those are just kind of minor details compared to Skubal getting elbow surgery. The silver lining is it's not like Tommy John. He's not out for the season. Presumably, we'll see. The timetable is about 2 to 3 months. It's just removing loose bodies in his elbow. But this is a team that probably needs a Skubal to stay at the head of the AL Central. The good news is the AL Central isn't that great, so maybe they can stay up there. They need Frommer to step up if that's going to happen. And then I don't think the Tigers were going to be bad enough to where they'd trade Skubal at the deadline, but now obviously I don't even know what the difference in the package would look like or what the package would look like. And then the last factor of this injury is, like, does this affect Skubal's number? Because he's going to be a free agent this offseason. I'd assume it does. This is his third elbow surgery, albeit this is the most minor of them. But unless he comes back at the end of the season and just looks amazing, I'm sure that's a question for teams. So that's a big bummer. It's a big blow for the Tigers. I hope they can stay in it and we get to see Skubal pitch in the postseason, but we'll see. They got to stay afloat. I mean, that division, they can do it, but I don't know. The next team is the best team in baseball. It's the Atlanta Braves. They went 5-1. They won 2 of 3 against the Tigers, and then they swept the Rockies, like we talked about. Starting yesterday, I get confused with when I wrote this and what day it is today. You know me. Starting yesterday, they started a series against the Mariners. That's a fun one. That's my favorite team in the AL against the best team in baseball. I'm going to be tapped into that one. We're going to have notes on that for sure. And that's the next team we're going to talk about, the Mariners, who went 2-4. So hopefully that doesn't bleed into the Braves series, but they won 2 of 3 versus the Twins, and then they got swept by the Royals, which I want my Mariners to do well. My Mariners. they're my AL pick and my World Series pick. But I want them to do well. If anyone was going to sweep them, it needed to be the Royals because I feel like I'm invested in the Royals and they've been bad. So we need the Royals to start winning. Maybe the Royals start winning. The Scooble injury dips the Tigers, and we're back on track for the Royals AL Central crown. But they got to get going. The Mariners, though, Cole Young is hot. When Colt Emerson gets called up, which Colt Emerson is their shortstop prospect that they gave a pre-debut extension to, which is pretty rare. And he's going to be really good, in my opinion. That's going to be one of the more fun middle infield duos in baseball. So look out for that. Colt Emerson should be up at some point this year, I would assume. I mean, you just extended him in the offseason. Can't imagine they wait too long. Next team we're going to talk about is the Twins. They lost 2-3 to the Mariners, and then they split 2-2 against the Blue Jays. They're starting to find their footing in the cellar, kind of like I thought they would. Sorry, Twins fans, Twins Nation. I don't think they're that great of a team. They've been a little more fun to watch, and part of that is the guy that I dove into for this team. Taj Bradley has looked awesome. I'm watching the Nationals game, and he happens to be pitching against them right now, and he looks great. We're losing, so good for Taj Bradley. He's only throwing 4 pitches, but his fastball and his split have been elite, like elite. He's combining to throw the 2 pitches 69% of the time. Nice. So it's really heavy 2-pitch. He has a get-me-over curveball that he kind of just uses to get ahead in accounts and bury late in counts, and then he's got a cutter to mix the fastball looks, but it's heavy fastball splitter. Again, it's one of those where like he's going to regress throughout the season. He's not going to be this good for the whole season, but he's been awesome. And I think he'll continue to be pretty good. Just the fact that he uses 2 pitches so heavily and only has 4 pitches, he's not going to be like a going deep into games type of guy. So that's, he'll be good. The next team is the Brewers. They went 4-2. They beat the D-backs 2 out of 3, and they beat the Nats 2 out of 3. There was that game early in the D-back series where Brandon Woodruff, his fastball wasn't topping 87. It's very scary. They pulled him from the game in the 3rd, which felt late for that. Get him out now. They're saying the stuff is coming back positive. Like it's nothing scary, which is weird. What is it, just dead arm? Is there an IL stint? Is he gonna make his next start? I don't know what's gonna happen. So we'll keep track of that because that's scary for the Brewers. The thing about that is, while you love Brandon Woodruff, he's not the same as he used to be. And the Brewers have so many arms just stockpiled that they'll be fine. But, you hope Woodruff is okay. And then the D-back series, they let William Contreras get hot, and that is so fun to watch. He is so good. And I love watching him hit when he's hot. Speaking of the D-backs, they lost 2-3 to the Brewers, like I just talked about. And then they got swept by the Cubs. They went 1-5. They played the NL Central, and the NL Central is a gauntlet right now. We talked about earlier how the Diamondbacks have kind of had the luck swing back to them because they've been so unlucky over the last couple of years. I hope this isn't the luck running out, but it could be. Very well could be. It's hard to find the place for the Diamondbacks because it feels like the Padres have solidified themselves as that second-best team in the NL West. So the Diamondbacks have to be the 3rd, but you have Dodgers, Padres at the top up here, and you have Rockies, Giants way down in the cellar of the NL and the NL West. So it's just where do the Diamondbacks find themselves in the middle of that? That's going to be the question. Are they a wild card team? Are they pushing closer to the Padres and the Dodgers than you think? I don't think so, but it'll be interesting to see where they land in the NL landscape just because they're in such a big chasm in the NL West. The next team is the team they beat in the 2001 World Series, the New York Yankees. First of all, R.I.P. John Sterling, baseball legend. If you ever listened to a Yankees game, he was the radio announcer, but you'd hear his calls. And the Yankees win, the Stantonian blast, and just a legend. So rest in peace, John Sterling. They won 2 or 3 against the Rangers, and they swept the Orioles in 4 games. One of the Rangers games was Cam Schlittler, who has just been a delight to watch, versus Jacob deGrom, who is one of the greatest pitchers of all time, and it was sick. It's just 2 big body righties throwing gas. It lived up to the hype. Later in that game, Fernando Cruz had one of the more insane plays I've seen. There was a bunt with runners at first and second, or it was either just second or first and second. He made this running and Fernando Cruz is a big reliever, not an athlete by any means. He's sprinting down the line, sliding, spinning, throw. It was just Bartolo Colon would be proud. Let's just say that. It was a nice play. Yeah, that was awesome. And then, sweeping the Orioles. I think the Yankees are reclaiming, like, hey, the East is ours. Like I predicted before the season. See how I take credit for that and then don't say anything when the teams I thought were going to be good aren't? Let's talk about the Rangers, because they lost 2 or 3 to the Yankees, and they lost 2 or 3 to the Tigers. They're playing the Yankees again this week, which is tough. There's been a lot of these short turnaround series. The Rangers only get to play the Yankees, or the Rangers only play the Yankees twice in a year. They just played them early last week, and they're playing them again this week. I hate that, because now you have the Rangers, who are a good team, who are playing not great ball as of late, running up against the Yankees, who are hotter than the surface of the sun. And it's like, can I catch them when they're not playing this well? I have to play them twice when they're playing this well. Like, really? Why? The Angels and the White Sox are doing that too. There are a couple other series where it's like, they just played them. Why? I don't get it. Sucks for the Rangers. I mean, hopefully they can salvage something against the Yankees, but they're playing one of the hottest teams in baseball again. I don't know what to tell you. The next team is the Royals. Mixed bag here. They lost 2 or 3 versus the A's, and then they swept the Mariners. So, interesting week. I'm really hoping the sweep of the Mariners is the Royals turning it around. And like I said earlier, the Central could be open with Scooble's injury. This team is so fun to watch, man. I mean, Bobby, Vinny P. I think I mentioned it, but they have a guy on payroll to wear a full Sasquatch suit and walk on top of the jumbotron, like on the roof of the stadium, every time Vinny P has like an RBI or a hit or something. Like, who has that job? I want to know who has that job. How much is he getting paid? Does anyone notice it? Is it just the cameras at the game? Like, do people see it at the game? Can they see him? I don't know. I'm fascinated by that job. That has to be one of the most interesting jobs in the world, to put on a Sasquatch suit and walk on top of the scoreboard of the stadium every time a certain player gets a hit. That's insane. That's an insane sentence. But I love it. I love every second of it. If that sounds like I'm on drugs or something, Vinny Pasquantino, his nickname is the Pasquatch, so that's why it's a Sasquatch. I'm not on drugs. The next team we'll talk about is the A's. They went 3-3. Like I said, they won 2 or 3 versus the Royals, and then they lost 2 or 3 versus the Guardians. We'll check in on the standings in a little bit, but guess what? First place A's. That's cool. I don't think it sustains. I don't think their pitching is good enough, but this team's going to rake. And maybe there's something to them being in their second season in Sacramento and feeling at home there, because it's got to be tough as a team going on the road to a minor league stadium. It's just so different. I know they do their best to try to keep it as major league experience as possible, but it's a different thing. So maybe there's something to them being comfortable at home, and maybe they, go on a run. I would love to see it. This is a fun A's team. Next team is En Fuego. They are hot. It's the Cubs. They're 5-1. They look like one of the best teams in baseball, which, by the way, NL World Series pick. Thank you I'm just going to keep, every time I get something right, I'm going to call it out. And even if the Cubs nosedive and don't make the playoffs, I'll never mention it again. They won 2 of 3 versus the Padres, and then they swept the D-backs. They're playing such great ball, and they lead the division that is just a gauntlet right now. So, yeah, I don't want to play the Cubs. Don't want to play the NL Central in general. They won. Actually, that's on next week's recap because it was yesterday. But they won such a fun game last night. We'll talk about that next week. The Padres, they went 2-4. They're going to be fine, but they lost 2 of 3 to the Cubs, and they lost 2 of 3 to the White Sox. That's tough. You do a Chicago trip. Was it a Chicago trip? Was it in San Diego? I forget. Can't be losing series like to the White Sox. Trying to track down the Dodgers, but we'll talk about the Dodgers in a second here. They didn't do great either, so we'll see. The Marlins, like I said, talking about the Dodgers, they took 2 of 3 from the Dodgers, and then they lost 3 of 4 to the Phillies. Feels like they played the Phillies at the wrong time. Like if they caught them the week before, maybe they went 5-1 this week, but they played them at the wrong time. Sorry, I need water. I can't talk without water. But yeah, Marlins taking 2 of 3 from the Dodgers. That's awesome. The national media that only pays attention to the Dodgers got to see their closer that comes in and slaps himself in the face to fire himself up, which is just psycho and awesome. I love it. But let's talk about the Dodgers. James Wood just hit an insane home run. Live updates. The Dodgers, bad week. They went 2-4. They lost 2 of 3 to the Marlins, and they lost 2 of 3 to the Cardinals. These are teams that doesn't feel like they should be losing series to, but it feels a lot like last year's Dodger team. Like they haven't kicked it up to that playoff gear, and I don't know if they have to. Maybe the Padres being right on their tail eventually kicks them into gear, but it feels like they're kind of just on cruise control, and then once the playoffs kick in, then they go. This is a whole nother rant, and I'll do power rankings at some point. If I were to put out power rankings right now, they'd still be number 1 because that's how I think power rankings work, and I think people do them wrong. But I think they're still the best team in baseball and still should have the best chance to win the World Series. The next team went 3-3. The New York Mets playing 500 baseball? What? Don't get too excited. They lost 2 of 3 to the Nats, which, if you said that before the season, that's tough. But then they got to play the Angels, so they won 2 of 3. Carlos Mendoza, there was a statement from Stearns that he's safe, he's good, he's going to be fine, and he was blessed. They had a run of, I think it was White Sox, Rockies, Nationals, Angels, and they played terribly throughout that stretch. So, again, like I called earlier, I could see the Phillies turning it around. I can't see the Mets turning it around. This feels broken. The team feels discombobulated. They're off to a bad enough start to where even if they did pull it together, they're going to have to do major work to get back in the standings. I don't see it happening. I think this might just be a lost year for the Mets. And finally, last but not least, come on now. We're talking about my team. The Nats went 3-3. Like we said, they won 2 of 3 against the Mets. That was a fun series. Not that entertaining. It was there was one good game, but the other 2 games were just blowouts, trading both ways. And then they lost 2 of 3 to the Brewers, where the Brewers just looked like the better team because they are. This is an insane note. The Nationals are 12-7 on the road and 3-11 at home this season. That 3-11 is presumably going to kick up to 3-12 after this game that I'm watching right now. Just been bad at home. I don't know why. I hope that changes because I'm going to DC in late July. Yeah, they stink at home. It's rough. The kind of good news about that is they're good on the road. So if you can figure it out at home, maybe that just makes you a good team. It's early enough to where it's probably just small sample size stuff, but just a weird stat. 3-11. Yeah. The next note I have is I don't think they track this, but James Wood will probably rob the most home runs ever. Not that he's the best outfielder, not that he's the best athlete. Like Kevin Pillar had some of the craziest robberies. I can name a bunch of crazy defensive outfielders that have such cool robberies. Obviously, the Mike Trout one in Baltimore. But he's so tall and so athletically gifted that he robs like a home run a week. It's absurd. And like once every 3 months or so, he robs one without jumping, where like other guys would have to like really he's a freak out there. It's so fun to watch. And I think if he plays a long career and doesn't have to DH too early in his career, which eventually he'll get there, but he might rob the most home runs ever. I would love to see that stat at the end of his career, but slow down. It's only, 23? Slow down, Kevin. Also, another note on James Wood, he is the perfect 3 true outcome hitter. If you don't know what that is, 3 true outcomes, a walk, a strikeout, or a home run. That's what he's doing. He's hitting the living crap out of the ball. When he hits it, he's taking pitches out of the zone, and he's striking out a lot. And it can be a frustrating watch. It's kind of like Murakami, but he's a better hitter. It can be very frustrating in stretches, but then when he gets hot, it's just unreal. And he's great. He probably will be the best example of the 3 true outcome hitter of all time in due time. Hopefully he transcends that and drops the K rate, keeps walking at this pace. But even if this is what he is, he's one of the better players in baseball, so that's fine. And the other thing is we got an elite duo now. CJ Abrams has been so good. I am kind of terrified because he's been this good to start a season before, and he's fallen off. So if anyone is a fan of a player that has done this, where they have these yo-yo seasons and go great first half, bad second half, waiting for them to take the leap and just be consistently great is terrifying, because how long into the season do you go, okay, now he's figured it out? I don't want to jump the gun and say this is who he is all the time, but he's looked so good this season. Let me see. Let's see where we're at with the standings. I just want to do a little check-in on the standings, because that's it for the team talk and the series talks. The Braves have been great. The Nationals are second in the East. Doesn't feel that way. I think the Phillies will crawl back. The Mets feel dead. The Central is still elite. The worst record in the NL Central is the Brewers, insane, at 18-16. Ridiculous. The Dodgers, like I said, feel like they're just dragging along, and they're 22-13, which is right there with the best records in baseball. Yeah. The Yankees are 8 games up on the Blue Jays. They're only 1.5 up on the Rays. I didn't realize the Rays have been doing so well, but I don't think the Rays are long-term in the running for this division. So the Yankees having an 8-game lead on Toronto is huge. Boston is sad, 14-21. Baltimore's 15-21. These teams are sad, man. They're year in and year out disappoint. The AL Central is just a bunch of mid 18 and 18, 18 and 18, 17 and 18, 16 and 19, 15 and 20. They're separated by 2.5 games, and they would all be in last place in the NL Central. There's your stat of the day. They're separated by 2.5 games in the AL Central, and they'd all be in last if they were in the NL. And like I said earlier, first place athletics, fun. I don't think that sustains, but Mariners and Rangers being 2 back of them, I think that's the 2-team race with the A's making it interesting in the 3rd spot. I think that's what you're working with. So that's our standings check-in. Fun standings, interesting standings. It's been a weird start to the year. But the last thing I wanted to talk about, because we got some playoff basketball and playoff hockey, I wanted to talk about the 4-sport playoffs. If you know me and you're watching this podcast, or know that this podcast exists, I love baseball and will defend it till I die. So the MLB playoffs exceed anything else for me personally. If you're a fan of one sport, obviously you're going to like that sport's playoffs the most because you watch the sport. That's how it works. So baseball, far and away the best for me. If I try to remove bias, I think baseball is still in the conversation for best playoffs. The atmospheres are electric. The series have so much tension and the momentum can swing so quick. I think it makes for such a great product in the playoffs, and I think it's very comparable to playoff hockey. The only thing that I think baseball can kind of win at with the playoffs is the no clock thing. I mean, you can always come back. It doesn't matter. So I'd say baseball and hockey are top 2. The NFL, for how good of a product the NFL is, the NFL playoffs are great. And then the game that is the granddaddy of all games and is the biggest game in the world is a terrible product. I'm not alone in this opinion that the Super Bowl is garbage, right? Like obviously I'd love my team to win a Super Bowl. That'd be awesome. But if my team was in the Super Bowl, I would hate it. You got to go to a party with a bunch of people who don't watch the sport, and everyone only cares about the commercials or the halftime show. It's not the game. The game doesn't even matter at this point. So that's what kind of ruins the NFL playoffs for me, is the fact that the crown jewel is just not what football's all about. Give me any random Sunday where there's a full slate of games over the Super Bowl Sunday. In terms of just watching football, I don't think that's a crazy take, but I understand the party of it is all fun and everything. But playoff hockey, electric. I actually like playoff basketball. The only problem with playoff basketball and basketball in general is the last 2 minutes of the game take way too long. And then it just turns into can they make the free throws and foul and hit a 3 and foul and hit it? It just gets a little repetitive. I don't know. I like it though. I like individual players in basketball enough to where it's fun to watch the playoffs. Oh my goodness, the Nationals are just getting torched right now. Yikes. But yeah, I think in terms of the 4-sport playoffs, you got baseball, hockey at the top. I'd say the regular playoffs for football would be close behind that, but the Super Bowl just drops it down to a pretty distant third, and then I'd put NBA just a slot below that. The cool part about I think Game 7s are cooler than a single playoff football game because it's the playoff football game is manufactured. They're all do or die, whereas a Game 7 is it's the lead up of the Game 7. There's already 6 games of lore for the series, and now you're getting the do or die game. I don't know. That's what I think about the playoffs. I'm having fun watching the NHL and the NBA playoffs, But I'm mostly watching baseball. I don't really care about those other sports. I love me some football, but it's baseball. I'm watching the Nationals lose 10-3 over any NBA game. That should tell you how I feel. And I hope you feel that way too. You probably don't, because I'm a sicko. But I've been rambling. Let's end this thing. I'll see you guys again on Friday, where we're talking about, I don't know yet. We're going to figure out a topic for it. And I'm going to have a good time figuring it out, because that last Friday episode was so much fun. And I have a feeling I'm going to have fun with those. So we'll see you on Friday for a mystery topic episode. Have a good week, everyone.